Smart Energy 2025 is just around the corner. The annual renewables event of the year returns to Sydney on April 9 and 10. In the midst of a federal election focused on energy, be amongst key decision makers and 12,000 delegates to showcase your solutions, expand your network, and position your brand for growth. As the Smart Energy Council celebrates its 70th anniversary, there's no better place to be than at Smart Energy 2025. Visit smartenergyexpo.org.au for details.
All right, welcome back to Just Another Solar Podcast with Luke Beattie. That's me, Karl Jensen. G'day, Karl.
Wouldn't be me without the weather report, Luke. Racking day in Melbourne today. We've had one 40-degree day, and I see in your forecast you've had a month of 40-degree days. So turns out Melbourne's not particularly horrible this time of year.
And g'day, Jess MacPherson.
Hello, welcome back. I feel like we're very much actually into 2025 now. I feel like we've gotten past the hump of New Year's, and now that Australia Day is done, we're actually into business again this week.
And the big news is, Jess, you're in the artwork now for Just Another Solar Podcast.
Yeah, I've been cartoonified, which I'm coming to terms with, you know.
It's pretty flattering. I was asking if Nigel could do the same effect with all of us to make us look younger and shinier and brighter. Apparently it's too hard. So g'day, industry legend Nigel Morris.
G'day. Yeah, well, I did my best because we're very excited to have Jess on the show full time, which is just awesome because she's gives us some great insights on what it's like, you know, right at the cutting edge of this exciting solar coaster industry that we are in.
It's not all good news though, Nigel. It's been an ongoing issue with the Vic backstop. What's the latest?
So I'm officially calling it a disaster. It is, I would say it's, you know, we've gone through the ups and downs of the solar coaster before with programs, and it is a long time since we have seen so many things go wrong. Sorry to everyone in Victoria who's in the regulatory space and trying to make this work, but it ain't working for a whole lot of reasons, and there's a whole lot of different entities and people involved. But the single major issue that is occurring right now, and I did actually check with our CTO for an update just before we came on air, as far as we're aware, the backstop servers are currently not operating in Victoria and certainly not operating reliably. And that means two things. It means, number one, new systems cannot technically be legally commissioned because you can't go through the commissioning process because the servers aren't working, allowing you to do that. And number two, what we are hearing and seeing indeed from our data and from other people's data, from other OEM manufacturers' data, and from retailers and installers on the ground who I've been speaking to relentlessly for the past 24, 48 hours, is that a lot of systems that are online are either limited to 0 or maybe a kilowatt or so. The consequence of this program going wrong, particularly around the servers, is that every new solar system in Victoria is potentially limited to 0 or just above 0 kilowatts, which is outrageous. On beyond, we've never had a scheme that has artificially limited every single solar system from being able to export energy before, ever, by accident.
Companies aren't getting paid. They're not able to commission systems.
Well,
it's impacting small business. And I know that the Smart Energy Council had their crisis meeting on Thursday that you were on. John Grimes was in Melbourne trying to affect change. It seems if it's broke, then don't have a hard enforcement. Delay the date.
Indeed. And it is...
Today was D-Day, wasn't it?
Well, it's D-Day for one particular part of a plethora of issues. And so the fact that the servers have gone down is just one of the issues. Pretty major issue, but it's just one of the issues. The second issue that you're referring to, Karl, is the fact that from tomorrow, only certain approved products are even allowed to be connected. And there is a massive backlog of either compliance testing or listing for a variety of major manufacturers from global manufacturers who can't technically sell products in Victoria from tomorrow as a consequence of the fact that the DNSPs aren't ready to test, which is crazy. You know, if I list the issues, there are servers down. Systems are artificially export limited. There's a failure to even commission systems in many cases. There is a complete lack of data and transparency on how many systems are or are not connected. Sorry. not a complete lack. We've had a tiny smidge of data about which ones are connected or aren't. We have woefully slow product approvals. We have legacy systems that are not compatible, that are being forced to comply at the moment, despite the fact that Deka and SolarVic have been highlighting informally that didn't seem to be the intention. We've got installers who are forced to do repeat visits to site, costing them time and money. We've got epic cost to OEMs. We've got consumers losing money on the energy that they may have made a small income from by exporting. And of course, installers and retailers who are in the middle of all of this. For what it's worth, we've done an estimate, back of the paper, cigarette paper estimate. We think this has already cost industry around $50 million in how messy it is. I want to call out the Smart Energy Council, Bobby McKibben, Matt Wilson, and dozens of others, and actually really urge anyone who is affected to actually get involved in this, because we need all hands on deck.
We do, Nige. And if you're talking about $50 million in Victoria, tell us why people in other states should be paying attention to this.
Don't want to make this the Nige Rant show, but, in Queensland, we had a similar episode last week, fortunately more short-lived, but in Queensland, the dynamic CSIP program failed, went offline on Friday. Similar sort of issue, according to one of the tech guys that I spoke to today, to what we saw with the Victorian one. So it's all CSIP enabled. That's the sort of protocol that we're using. Seems like the very similar problem happened in Queensland. Luckily, it was back online by Monday. So shout out to Queensland for sorting that within a few days. If they can do it, I don't understand why Victoria can't. And, for what it's worth, there's a lot of discussions about technical solutions and different solutions in different places. Who remembers DRM? When they jammed DRM down our throats about 15 years ago and said, every inverter's got to have DRM within tomorrow. And we all kicked up a stink and we got a delay to allow everyone time. Everyone spent tens of millions of dollars, implemented DRM control in solar inverters, and we got it done. It's never been used. Never. But it's still sitting there, still in every single inverter. Then not long after that, we had Volt VAR. So they went, no. Volt VAR's the way to do it. We're going to protect our network. The network's about to fall over. Everyone's going to get blacked out. The whole country's going to fall off the side of a cliff. So you've got to do Volt VAR. And they did that for a while, and then it's just sort of faded away into nowhere. And of course, we've had hard export limits nationwide, which are still in place in many, many circumstances. Defies logic to me how there can be a regulation that allows a hard export limit of 5 kilowatt per single phase connection in Victoria, for example, and yet the DNSPs are able to enforce a new limit of 0 in some instances. That I don't know how that's even legal. We're just making this way harder than it needs to be. And
I'll throw it out there, Nigel. New AEMO minimum dollars in Victoria from 1st of July. We're talking 0.04 of a cent for export. And I think that everybody I've spoken to about backstop says, you know what? I'll zero export it. I'll say to the customer, I'll buy you a carton of beer, and that'll cover you for the next 10 years of your export anyway, and we can move on.
I'm going to call you on that, Karl, and the people who are doing that, because I think that is a bad outcome. I understand exactly why people would do it, but the point of backstop is if there is a catastrophe, if transmission lines go down, if there is a minimum demand event, if there is a major need to an earthquake, which will throw every inverter in Australia offline if it shifts the frequency outside the specs, right? Every single one of them's going offline. They need the ability to get some central control because we've got, a zillion gigawatts of solar on 1 billion houses in Australia now, right? This is different to the rest of the world, and we do need smart control out there to keep the grid stable. So the consequence, I understand exactly why people are doing what you just described, Karl. The consequence of that is not good for anybody. It's a bad outcome for everyone. Put the financials aside for a moment. We all agree there's not much money in exports value. Sure, that's not the point, though. It's not about making money. It's about keeping the grid stable. If you keep the grid stable and you make it smarter, everyone can sell larger systems. You can sell more heat pumps. I sell more catch controls. Jess makes $1 squillion and Luke goes to the Bahamas, right? So
Well, just to give you guys an update from the future, here in SA, where we are running mostly on renewables, and we've sort of been through this before.
Exactly.
Which is a whole different can of worms, and we've said it before. But just to give you guys the idea, when flexible exports was first getting rolled out, there were like 2 or 3 brands of inverters that were compliant on flexible exports. I'm sure many people installed other stuff and didn't register it or delayed register or whatever. I'm sure people got around it in different ways. But there was a time where there were like 3 brands that you could install legally, compliantly in SA. And even now, Powerwall 3 is not currently flexible export compatible. Right. So if you've got solar and a Powerwall 3, you're putting it on fixed export of 1.5 kilowatts per phase, and then it'll come out and everyone will roll over and do a new seg, like do a new application, and it'll all go through and be happy days. And, customers, generally speaking, they don't care too much. Financially, it's not affecting them that much.
That's
it's
a bit
still
of
a lot of
though. Put in
100%.
50 systems in a month, all of a sudden it's a lot of paperwork.
And I'm pretty proud of being able to do a seg. That's our SA Power Networks application in like a couple minutes, but it's still a couple of minutes in a row. But end of the day, it's going to affect the people who are doing the right thing and not the people who are doing the wrong thing. And it's a pattern that we see time and time again. I haven't been in the industry long enough to have to say that, but I'm still here saying it.
I'm going to jump in and just remind everyone that this is about to become national. In fact, I was told today that New South Wales is planning to have their own backstop or dynamic, one form or another, by October. That's 34 weeks away, right? In 34 weeks, everyone in New South Wales will be required to do this. And around the same time, AEMO and the AER are calling on this to be nationally implemented in all states.
All right, Nigel, I think you've blown the word count, but it's a very important topic, and I think it's one that we need to monitor and we need to be working
Get
towards.
ready.
Yes. And just a quick one, Jess, you've also noticed something with the issues online with tech support. What's going on?
I'm just seeing a lot of complaints on cutters, especially the last couple of weeks, about tech support. And I don't want to pretend it's not an issue. Our installers are dealing with it too. It's definitely something that we're seeing. We have really good relationships with our manufacturers, and we feel luckier than most. And we're definitely spending heaps of time on site on hold. And it's okay to have a whinge, it's okay to have a whine, but where you can put some productive information in a post where people can actually help you with it. There's so many people on cutters who want to help. It's a great way for other people to learn, and you can just search through posts instead of having to ask anew every time, and and just try to be kind to these people who are working so hard to try and help you. Very understaffed, like every single company in the industry. There's a lot of people trying to do the right thing.
I'll stick my hand up and say that backstop is taking up a lot of resources for these people that doesn't normally happen. Therefore, it's not entirely their fault. We've got this third wheel, third link, whatever you want to call it, that's soaking up a lot of time and resources in the manufacturer's space. Luke and I know it all too well. We've got an awesome tech support team, and they're putting in shitloads of hours to keep Victoria ticking over and getting systems connected.
The biggest news this week that I'd love to go to is that we have sponsorship. We have a sponsor, the Smart Energy Council. Huge thanks to John and his team, because we haven't needed sponsorship to talk about how much they benefit the industry. We're no longer a backyard operation. We're a sponsored podcast.
Finally, I want to second that thanks to the Smart Energy Council. I just highlight to our listeners, all of us do this in our own time, a lot of the time, at our own cost, the majority of the time. In fact, all the time when it comes to Just Another Solar Podcast, because we've never had any paid contributions in the past. And these shows do cost something to put on. So getting some sponsors in allows us to grow the show. It allows us to make it more professional, to get some good equipment for our hosts so that everyone sounds fantastic, get some, make sure that Luke's not spending his weekends editing the podcast. And even, I'm going to drop it, we've got a freaking cool website coming out pretty soon.
Is Jess doing that, or is it your brother, Luke?
It's Jess, Nigel, all of our relatives, anyone who can operate a computer. Please.
Guy we found on the street hanging out by a dumpster.
Exactly.
It's not like it's raining money and it's going to be a fantastic thing, but we're starting from something.
Yeah, that's right.
No, many hands, Carl. It's going to be great.
And we've got some great ideas. There are actually going to be some really good resources on that website, apart from, quick links to the show and the ability to place comments and ask questions and interact with various different guests and all that kind of stuff. There's also going to be some really, really cool stuff that we've got planned that doesn't exist anywhere else in the Australian solar industry. So, stay tuned.
we're stoked to have Smart Energy Council sponsoring us. I didn't know that they're going to be 70 years old. I don't know of any other peak industry body in the solar industry that's that old. My mum turned 70 this year. And I'm not sure if she listens to this. Sorry, Mum. But and they also have their Smart Energy Expo coming up at Sydney's ICC on the 9th and 10th of April. It's pretty interesting timing because the federal election's coming up as well. So energy policy is going to be front and centre there. And Smart Energy 2025 is bigger and better this year. There's over 12,000 attendees expected. If you're going to pick a show, come along to this one.
They've got a bunch of installer roadshows coming up too, if I'm not mistaken, next month. Well, by the time this goes to air, it'll be this month in February. So they've got a bunch of training shows along with a whole bunch of other shows that are dropping in Feb.
There's so many events coming up, but this is definitely one you should put in your calendar. Got the energy election coming up, and you can be surrounded by key decision makers and innovators. There's actually 18 conference streams over the 2 days, so they've gone a bit more narrow and deeper into topics which are more relevant to wherever you sit in the industry. And it's your chance to showcase your solutions, expand your network, and position your brand for growth. Are we doing a live podcast there, by the way? We are doing a live podcast there, Nigel. So I'm pretty excited about that. We're going to be on the stage. I know that we've done it before. Jess, you haven't done it with us before, so...
Not with you guys, but I've had my time in the limelight. Not my first rodeo there. Famously did a serenade with Pat Southwell at an AWISE event. Yeah, that's my reputation in the industry.
Okay, so you'll be singing there, Jess. We'll be doing the podcast.
Whoa.
And the other thing, we'll have some more details on this, but in the lead up to the show, there's the gala dinner, which has the awards. Yeah. So it's the inaugural Smart Energy Council Awards. I know that other events have other awards, but really this is going to be a massive event, an opportunity to get dressed up. So reminder number one, you can jump online and nominate other companies or your own company for these awards. The gala tickets are out there. You can go online and get those gala tickets, but we're going to have a couple of them to give away in the upcoming episode. So there'll be more details, but you can go to smartenergyexpo.org.au for more details. Before we introduce our guest, who's been very patient and a very high-profile guest, I came up with a concept after our meeting with John and Zoe from the Smart Energy Council. Win your own podcast. You listen to us and you probably think, I know we go to networking events and guys are like, I know a whole lot too. I could do a podcast as well. I agree with you. We don't have any special credentials. We do certainly get some of the best guests. But if you have an idea or a concept for a podcast, doesn't have to be like our one. It can have guests. It can be whatever you like. Over the 2 days at the Smart Energy Expo, we're going to have a media booth there where it's got all the equipment for you to record. So you're going to submit your synopsis, your idea to us. We'll pick it out. We'll book you in the booth. We'll put it to a panel of industry experts. They're going to rank it. And whoever gets the most ranking wins a podcast, i.e. your first episode's recorded at the show. You'll get the first year worth of hosting as well. We'll help you set up all the artwork and all the bits and pieces so you're on all the directories, and you'll get a microphone and some headphones so you can run away. It's ready to go. If you've got some great ideas, you think this is for you, get your idea together, put it to us. You'll get a leg up. All you need is the idea and to come along and execute it. And if you're the best one, you win a podcast. So that's in conjunction with the Smart Energy Council as well.
That is wild. We're going to help create another, it's just another solar podcast.
That's it. So there'll be more details in the future. But once again, thanks to the SEC. And our guest has been super patient. We have Mark Cavanaugh from MC Electrical. For a lot of you, Mark doesn't need an introduction. He's had the business going there in Queensland for almost 16 years. He's got one of the most notable channels on YouTube, which covers products and industry and a whole bunch of, some of it's customer facing, some of it's industry facing. And I'm going to put the tag that Nigel put in the notes here. Welcome to the podcast, Mark, the Courteous Assassin Cavanaugh.
Thanks, Luke and Nigel or whatever.
It's great to have you on board, Mark. For those who don't know you, can you just go through a brief of your business?
Yeah, okay. So I started in solar in 2009. So it would be pretty much, I reckon it might have been February 2009. So that would be basically 16 years or something. Right when the boom was happening in solar, right at the bottom of the curve in my mind anyway. But we were subbing for another company. worked out they had no idea what they were doing and ended up sort of doing it ourselves, I guess, is the short of the long story. And so I had to all of a sudden learn not how to install solar, but how to sell solar and, run a company like that. Flash forward to 16 or 17 or something like that. I started writing blogs, and 2020, sitting at home on the veranda, I started doing a bit of YouTube.
Was that a COVID project?
It was, yeah, sitting at home, nothing else to do. So why not get a green screen on the veranda and a really cheap microphone? And the first one is still up there. It's terrible.
And you've got tens of thousands of followers on YouTube. And I also see your videos referenced or links to it and popping up in all sorts of places.
Yeah,
so you've done really well with your reach there. I imagine you've got quite an international audience as well.
Yeah, like some of my blogs or videos kind of reach a bit further. Solar Edge was the biggest one blog back then, and kind of got a bit of an international following, and I'd get people calling me from Europe or America every other day for a month. So
legal firms all over the world.
Legal firms as well, yeah. So, yeah. Biggest benefit for me is it pushes me to be testing products to work out what's better for the business, but it just has so many other flow-on benefits of, you get invited to go to trips to factories and stuff like that, and get to learn more about the industry just because your name's out there a bit. So, yeah.
I do remember the last time I visited you in Queensland, you had some testing going on with EV chargers and you were working out what the impact of temperature was on them. That was one of the examples. And we might get back to that one, but I'd love to jump into some of your recent testing and controversies and online stuff.
Well, I reckon we begin at the iStore factory with the heat pumps, because I think Mark's actually the first solar customer that's ever visited there.
Yeah, is that right?
Way.
Yeah.
And we didn't even know he was there. He turned up out the front.
Classic Cavanaugh.
Yeah.
So you went to the iStore factory. Have you been to a heat pump factory?
No, I hadn't at all. So heat pumps are fairly new to me. There's a story behind that. I was going over to China to check out another couple of factories and called up Wayne from iStore, and he arranged within a couple of days to get me out to the factory, which was pretty cool and really interesting. And we had we spent about an hour and a half on the floor of the factory with two people that were, the factory floor manager, I think it was, and people that really knew what they were talking about. Just me and Yorick, one of my other guys. And it was a really good tour.
What are the other factories you went to over there? I think SIG Energy was one of them.
Yeah, so that's what Will invited me to SIG Energy. I was messaging him one night and he's like, "Oh, I'll prove you wrong. Come to the factory next week." So that's how it sort of started.
Because I did see that's a current controversy, if you like, or a mild controversy, that you were on the Cutters page this week, and you mentioned one thing about SIG Energy and service, and then it was a bit of a pile-on, I'd say.
Yeah, I felt really, justified until Jess started, going on about whinges about service. But shouldn't have been so controversial. But maybe sometimes I should keep my mouth shut and think before I post. Yeah, I've been on this SIG Energy journey where it's really interesting. And the first reason that Will invited me over there is I'm like, "Come on, Will, I've been through your training, but it's a 2-year-old company. This is just messaging him. Are you kidding me?" And he's like, "Oh, come to the factory and I'll prove you wrong." And basically he did. Like, I went to the factory, was absolutely amazed, came back and my guys couldn't believe that it was me and Yorick, one of my other guys, were really impressed with the factory. Obviously still concerns about a new company, because it's not my first rodeo sort of thing, So obviously still concerns about that. And I've been sort of trying to work through one concern at a time. A big concern, I think, for me, as much as I, maybe you shouldn't jump on and be a Karen and whinge about service online. But a big concern for me is after-sales support. And if we can't get on the phone to anyone at 2:00 in the afternoon for 3 hours or something like that, then I'm thinking, oh man, maybe this product is early. I'm not saying that's my answer. In fact, I think we are probably going to bring on SIG Energy at the moment. It's right in the middle of a controversy in my own head. Every 3 times a day, I change my mind about whether I love it or hate it.
We've talked about it a few times, and I'm not a decision maker for whether we will or won't do this kind of thing. But I think there's a lot of good signs, right? Like, there's really good people at the helm of the few people that they have. They're really good people, and like there's a lot of good peers in the industry that are really excited about the product. Like, I've heard some complaints about getting all the stock you need to actually do a job and like those sorts of things. But, I guess everything in balance, I agree with you. Like, it doesn't sound too awful. The price point is quite impressive. For me personally, and again, I haven't been in the industry that long, but I think I do a pretty good job at listening to good people. The price point being so low, honestly, is a concern for me. It's kind of like do you really want to be at that lower end of the market. Do you want to be competing with Alpha? I don't. I don't really want to be comparing and justifying that it's better, because I mean, I think it probably is, but especially for a very price-driven market, and that's the thing that a lot of customers are going to look at. I see that as a red flag in its own right, let alone margin for a long-term company and all of these other things that are very important as well.
Oh, that's a really interesting point. My view on it is I'm sitting here watching launch pricing. What do you guys think? I just feel like they're going, let's get some market share. Let's get the product out there. Let's see if we can get people, whacking us in. Is it just launch pricing?
I think launch pricing is a fallacy, Nige. Particularly in our market, it's very hard to
never go
low.
up.
It's very hard to go up. Very hard to go up. And we've seen it. Typically, they'll come in higher and come downwards gradually. We've seen it when you discount a product significantly and it's for a promo period. As soon as it goes back to the normal price, people really struggle with that. And you may lose customers because launch pricing in other industries and in different markets may work. I think it's a fallacy, Nige. I don't think you can drag it back up once it's down.
I love it.
Franklin's the classic there. They had some amazing deal and it looked fantastic next to a Powerwall, and a shitload of people bought them. And it's not a Powerwall, does some things better than a Powerwall, does some things not as better as a Powerwall, and then you add $4,000 to the price and it's like, don't think so.
Yeah.
What do you reckon, Mark?
Yeah, it's funny, Jesse, you bring that up because I haven't even put pricing together yet. That's the last thing on my list. I want to go through all the other weeds, and but I think that's a pretty valid point. I know it's cheaper than what I'm doing at the moment, BYD and Courteous, and it's cheaper than Tesla, and that's just because that's what people are telling me, right? But we've got the pricing in the catalog. I haven't put a system price together to really compare it, to be fair.
What I'd like to do, Mark, because you've revealed some of how you assess products. So that's really interesting. What's some of the other criteria? So not specifically for SIG, but when you approach a new product, what is that matrix you use to assess it?
Oh, geez. Okay, so I guess it depends for a product. A big thing that you were mentioning earlier was temperature for me, and how a product works under temperature, because I've got that rule of thumb: for every 10 degrees hotter a product works, electronics work, it'll half the lifespan of it. So that's been, that started off with Courteous when everyone's whinging about their external fans, and I'm testing it and putting a thermometer in it and running it side by side compared to a bunch of other inverters, and realizing, that's why they're insisting on the fans. It runs cooler. Temperature is a big one for me. With inverters, maximum power point trackers, like how they work with shade and handle shade being thrown at them, it is a big one for me. And it's kind of like, even if you don't have shade, it is kind of the proof of a company that knows the heck what they're doing. Courteous and SMA stand head and shoulders above everyone with that, how they handle shade.
So that's based on an algorithm that calculates the maximum power point when there's shade and that sort of thing? Is that...
Yeah.
Going to give a brief explanation for those who have no idea what that means?
Yeah, okay. So there's a maximum power point tracker. Means it's tracking at what point your voltage and your current should be, because voltage times current equals power. You can bring your voltage down, bring your current up, and that's kind of what we do what a maximum power point tracker does during the day. And as shade hits panels, it sort of changes the voltages and current. That's basic part of a maximum power point tracker. But then you can get really smart and get a global maximum power point tracker, which it surprises me that most inverter manufacturers don't have, because in my mind, it's just a freaking algorithm, and a little chip. But most people can't seem to pull that off.
But also from a market point of view, so you're talking about the actual performance of the products. What do you look for in terms of where it's positioned in the market and the company?
Oh, okay. So then I'm just really looking at longevity of the company and what I think about. A big part of it is service support for us. And I don't want to be too controversial with this, but we dropped SunGrow 3 years ago because Shane, my service manager, was just like, SunGrow is about 5% of what we're doing, and it's 95% of our problems. So we just dropped it and did Courteous because that costs me money. I did figures about SunGrow, by the way. They're not probably as bad as I was perceiving them, but they're not Courteous, They're not, Courteous just doesn't cause us the same problems. For me, a big part of maintaining a profitable long-term business is not having 3 electricians running out repairing inverters. When you've got 10,000 inverters out there on the field, it's installing good stuff, not having customers that are complaining because you're a day late for the service call out. You just don't have such a service issue.
When we talked about it over a beer, Mark, you said you were more worried about your kids when they take over your business, that they'll hate you forever for all of these warranties for shit here that you've installed. So we're talking really long-term thinking here.
Yeah. I don't think about it as and that's sort of with SIG Energy. That could be easily quick money, but I'm really wanting to work out, is SIG Energy going to keep my business sustainable and profitable without just a bunch of headaches that are just eating into the profit, causing headaches for my staff. My staff don't want to work here because it's always another angry customer on the phone for, why did your so-and-so inverter die,
And not to compare it, because it's obviously not the same, but just the LG Chem battery debacle is not over. I still hear ads on the local radio about, like, do you have one of these batteries?
You're on TV.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's LG. They're a huge electronics company, like, in terms of the sort of people who should have a great backing. It's no shade on SIG in any way imaginable, but, like, you can see why people would be nervous because of the age of the business.
Yeah, no, for sure. I crunched some numbers just before I jumped on this. I did it about a year ago too. But just to give you an indication of why I'm so, trigger shy, is SolarEdge. I've had a lot of a whinge about SolarEdge over the years. I don't think their product is a great design, and I don't think putting optimizers on the roof is great either. So we did 132 systems. 52% of those jobs have had inverter failures that we've swapped out. I checked this by what we've invoiced SolarEdge for, right? And 45% that we've invoiced for have got optimizer failures. But and that might be multiple failures. That's one invoice to go to site, right? So then I jumped into SolarEdge because we haven't maybe for 12 or 18 months proactively gone into our monitoring to see if an optimizer has failed, because it's really, sometimes it alerts it, sometimes it doesn't. And I jumped in today and really quickly, I checked 20 systems and I found another 10 optimizers fail. So that just doesn't, we're going to have to get back onto that now that I've brought it to my attention, and call those customers and go out there replacing optimizers. But we've only got 130 systems out there. If I had, we've got about 6,000 Courteous systems out there. If I had 6,000 SolarEdge systems out there, I'd be out of business, I will say this, though, which you've probably never heard me say anything positive about SolarEdge, but they are ridiculously good at warranty at the moment, really proactive and contacting us and sending out an inverter. So, if there's one thing that I can say positive about them, they're good at that.
Is that a compliment from MC?
It is.
No.
Yeah.
What about other MLPE, like Enphase?
It's a little bit mixed. So when I'm talking about that MPPT, or the Global Maximum Power Point Tracker that deals with shade that Courteous and SMA do, this is basically comparable to Enphase. So Enphase was always telling us it's the only product that can work in the sun. And they did these really dumb adverts about how no other string inverter can handle shade, which is just complete nonsense. So if you put a decent inverter in there, you don't need Enphase in the shade, is the first point. And then you're going, oh, okay, well, what about failure rates? And I do it from my point of view. I crunched those numbers and we've done about, around about 180 or whatever, but I've got the percentage here that 18% of our sites have had a truck roll to go and replace either a microinverter or an Envoy. To me, that's a lot of truck rolls to, for getting up there at 20%. Oh, by the way, I jumped into Enphase monitoring too, just before this. And yeah, we've got more failures that we need to go out there. Customer doesn't look at their monitoring. Their bill doesn't go down by much, so they don't call us.
It's okay. Keep it for winter, Mark.
Keep it for winter, yeah.
What you're describing, Mark, I think is so valuable. I don't know that there's a lot of end users. There's some retired engineers, my dad maybe. There's not a lot of end users who will want to go into the detail that you go into. But by gosh, every time I watch one of your videos with these insights into, what's this product like? Is it designed for the conditions that we're in? Do I feel like I'm going to get supported? What have my pilot tests showed me? It's so valuable, mate. It's credit to you that you deliver that content in that way, and it has real meaning.
Yeah, thanks. As a comparison there, just as the last one is Courteous, we're 4%. That's probably not a fair comparison because 500 of those inverters we just installed in the last 12 months, but it's a lot lower percentage, a lot less work for the office to do, a lot less angry customers, a lot nicer way to run a business. So, yeah.
Yep. And just touching on Nigel's point there, for those solar nerds out there who haven't seen MC Electrical on YouTube, jump online, have a look. There's a heap of material on there, very interesting. I want to jump into ACO now. So you did a video recently. Do you want to talk about the testing you did, the results, and the ensuing controversy?
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I just seem to love getting into
That's
it.
our word of the day, controversy.
When I saw the ACO tests at a trade show, what they've done is thrown a massive piece of cardboard over a panel and shown how the pump keeps on running. And if they do it to another panel, the pump stops. So basically, they're saying this panel is shade proof, it's going to keep on working through the shade. And I'm thinking, that doesn't make any sense to me. So I called them up, and I'll just say them, and talked about this and was convinced that there was something to it. I'm like, this sounds really interesting. So I bought whatever it was, 10 panels or whatever, and threw it up on the roof and just compared it to Canadian. So ACO 465 versus Canadian 465, very similar split cell panel, and put it into each string of a Fronius inverter. So we've got a real comparison, the same monitoring and everything like that. Tried this shade test, and the short of the story is it just does not work anywhere near like they've been marketing. Like there's about 1% truth to their claim. People will say, well, you weren't using one panel on a pump, with a light in a trade show. The test wasn't the same. Well, that wasn't the point. I wanted to do a real world test and see how it really works. And ACO told me black and white that it would work, but it just doesn't.
I agree with you there, Mark. I just happened to be in Tassie seeing my mentor, Alex from I Want Energy, when they started taking ACO into their lineup. And I just happened to be there when their sales team got the training on like how it all works. And I agree. I think the marketing around the mysticism of, this patented secret technology that allows these panels to work is very compelling. Like it sounds really appealing and lovely. And that demonstration is it's very attractive to the product. And that's why I found your video to be so interesting in the sense that it's like, well, that's fantastic. But unless you have this very consistent iPhone shaped shade on the panel in real life, it's going to be the same as any other bypass diode panel, right?
I'll diversify the controversy a bit. I really like the Longy panel. Back contact, look great, all the rest of it. And all of my dreams were trashed when Mark reviewed that panel. Tore the poor guy to shreds, chopped him away and said, hey, your warranty for shade's crap. Thanks for coming. Goodbye.
Well, no, to be fair, I think that's a little bit out of context in the fact that every panel is crap with warranty in the shade. So we have a waiver document, including Canadian, except we've got a waiver document from Canadian, because any panel that you put in the shade anywhere between, I don't know, midnight and midnight, I don't know where the line is, any shade on the panel at all, could be 5 o'clock in the morning shade. Every warranty document basically says, sorry, no warranty for you.
You've done some posts years ago now on this issue and how, warranties aren't necessarily warranties, and a warranty that doesn't cover a bit of shade on a panel is really not fit for purpose. Which I think is a really, really good point. It remains unresolved to this day, right?
Well, speaking of our mates over at Cutters, there was a good thread the other day. Basically said, hey, for $100 a panel, $80 a panel, it's not worth anybody's time doing anything unless you're replacing a whole system. So if you've got one panel that looks a bit whatever, or it's got a blown diode or whatever, just throw the thing off the roof and replace it for the $100. It's not worth your time trying to chase the warranty. So panel warranties, worthless.
And coming back to the panel technology too, I mean, ACO were the first movers on that rear contact, TopCon. Of course, we've had SunPower, Maxion in market for years with their rear contact panel, but ACO were the first movers. But if you look at the roadmap, if you look at the products coming in now, the other silicon module Super League, major manufacturers all coming to market with rear contact, TopCon cells. Efficiency is all getting up there. I don't think there's a huge difference between them. Mark, what's your take? We used to see a lot of variation in the quality of panels. Are panels just panels?
Yeah.
Is there a massive difference in the quality between them? Are we just spinning our stories?
Great question.
Yeah, we're just spinning our stories, and that's where I've ended up. And I've done a podcast with Ben, my panel nerd that works for us. That I think panels are panels, and so I'm not saying Longy is any better than. So we sell Canadian.
Calls it.
I don't say Longy's any better or worse than Canadian. My challenge to Brett was maybe a little bit cheekier, but I get like that. Just sort of saying, if you can change your install manual, don't give me a cover note. You've got to go one step further and change the install manual for the industry, because I want someone to tip so that everyone else has to follow, right? But I can't get anyone to tip. So if they change the install manual, then I'll change my panel. It'll be a pain in the neck for logistics, but it's a good panel.
The panel wars. I reckon I remember going to Gunnedah Field Day maybe about 27 years ago, and Steve Haller, who was the guy at RF Industries, who used to be a huge wholesale distributor of solar panels, was there with a thin film module with a bullet hole through it. And they were showing how freaking awesome they were and how they would bypass and they'd generate more energy, even with a 22 shell through the guts of it.
I'm guessing he just said his stand up the night before, and the locals of Gunnedah have just had a ping at it.
Put it on there.
And you just create a story.
That's right.
27 years ago, I was at that Gunnedah show, and I'd flown a farmer from Tamworth to Gunnedah in his own plane because he wanted to have a few beers while he was there.
27 years ago, I wasn't
world.
born. Anyways.
Yeah, there it is.
There we go.
Hey,
Ageism
also,
is live.
coming back to the ACO panel, did we all see that it was voted the best panel by Solar Quotes for this year, though? I find that to be very interesting.
They're very influential. Maybe even more influential than you, Mark. And they also have a promise that they published today that if someone had bought a system from a referral that came via Solar Quotes, that they were going to refund the deposit potentially.
That's right. That was related to SunGain. So last episode we had a listener question, and it was talking about a company that went broke, and we can talk about it. It's SunGain.
SunGain.
And they were a Solar Quotes affiliated company, and Finn came out and said that any customer who was a Solar Quotes referral to SunGain would get their deposit back.
Origins pay.
Well, whoever's paying.
It doesn't matter who's paying. That's massive. I think that is
a
awesome.
huge. Hopefully they get that paid back in marketing, because that was a boss move, I reckon.
Do you use Solar Quotes, Mark?
We do.
Yeah.
We've got it turned down to 1 at the moment, so we get 1 lead a day, just because we get enough leads without them. But it's good to be in their network, I think. So yeah.
You'd get heaps of referrals, I'm guessing, and repeat customers.
Yeah, a lot of referrals, repeat customers via the blog or YouTube or something like that, all in the mix sort of thing. So, yeah.
So, Mark, we quite like to have the balance, the work-life balance conversation with our guests. What do you do to keep yourself grounded and not 100% in work mode all the time?
Yeah, okay. I don't think I've ever really been a workaholic, and I get times when I really want to do long hours in the business or something like that. Potentially why I'm still enjoying what I'm doing. What do I do outside of business? I like to go for a surf or go mountain biking or something like that. Don't get out enough. I've got a couple of kids, 13 and a 15-year-old, so we like to hang out and do stuff.
Oh, very good. And we haven't got time for much more, so we're going to swing around to everyone for any last comments, and we'll start with you, Karl.
I did an oil change, which you shouldn't have to do, but I had to do it out of my own personal curiosity on the 300,000 kilometre old Model 3 that I bought for my stepdaughter with her money. And ultimately, I'm probably going to send that oil off for analysis just because I've got to know, but it looked pretty good. And the 300,000K EV for less than 20 grand is absolutely going to be a thing, and we're going to see a lot more of them. Novated leases didn't start until the end of 2022, and most of them are for 5 years. So we're only a couple of years away from seeing shitloads of low-cost second-hand EVs in the market. And amazingly, speaking of Solar Quotes, they did a review on that car, and they said that it doesn't meet Tesla's range estimates, which were based on a Chinese cycle. And they said that it would do 337 kilometres. And today that car does 305. So in 300,000 Ks, it's lost about 10% of its range, which is absolutely awesome for the second-hand EV market. So I think that Australia is going to progress into an absolutely rapid transition, and we're going to see heaps and heaps of Chinese cars, particularly as the red-headed idiot Donald has put huge tariffs on Chinese.
I thought it was Ronald, Karl.
Good one, Ronald, Donald, whatever. because of those tariffs, Australia is going to be a target market because we're a wealthy population. We've got lots of sunshine. We've got cheap energy. We've got expensive petrol. So we're just going to see heaps and heaps of new EVs on the road. And that's going to absolutely stimulate our business. Shout out for Matthew right there. He said people typically go and buy petrol on cheap days, and instead of buying petrol on cheap days, they say to themselves, I should put solar on my roof to run this car. So I think that with some luck over the next 2 years, we'll see a real sharp increase in demand for our solar systems, which is great.
And that's got your word count up a bit, but you're not touching Nige this episode. So. And throwing to you, Nige, last comments. 2
quick ones. Number one, what's happening in Victoria? What's coming up nationally? I really want to say to everyone out there, please get involved. It's, everyone's always asking for help and invest your time and blah, blah, blah. But you know what? If you don't get off your ass, you're just going to have to suck it up and you're going to get a program that doesn't work. So get off your ass, invest some time, work with your industry colleagues, work with your peers, get involved, and let's get this show back on the road. Let's get the Solar Coaster back on the road. And outside of that, I'm just excited. I'm looking at 50 events coming up in 2025, 12 in just the next month. My frequent fly points are going to be through the roof. I'm excited about getting around, seeing everyone. And we've got new products, new services, new solutions, and Catch School coming in 2025.
Watch that space. And Jess?
Yeah, my quick one is I'm one of the youths on the TikToks, and I was pleasantly surprised to see some Chris Bowden, the energy minister's videos, and I just think that they give such good dad on the internet energy. I just really enjoyed it. I think it's great to see more people taking the Kamala Harris approach to politics. And, they've got great messages about renewables versus nuclear and all of these sorts of things that is just great to see out and about. And I guess other than that, I can't wait for me and Mark's collab coming up soon.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
I hope.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
So you're basically a media mogul these days, Jess.
Yeah, I got a taste for it,
Empire is strong.
Mark Cavanaugh from MC Electrical. Awesome to have you on, mate. Do you have any last comments?
Yeah, thanks for having me a minute. One thing I want to wind back because Nigel was a little bit taken back when I said a panel's a panel. Within reason, right?
Yeah.
Longy, Jinko, Trina, all the big names, Canadian, obviously, all those big players is a panel. You go to REC, you're going to get a little bit better of a panel, the top panel. I don't know that there's anything else that compares to that anymore. But there also is garbage out there as well, the no-name panels that don't rank anywhere.
I'll jump in there. So Luke and I were recently in China and we went to a module manufacturer who's since disappeared, been bought out by another module manufacturer. While we were there were modules going down the line from 4 or 5 different big module manufacturers that we all know and love. And we said to the guy, hey, what's the difference? And he says, mate, some of them have got Twinsels, some of them have got MC4 Evos, some of them have got MCs, and the stickers are different. But other than that, it's the same line, it's the same glass, it's the same cells, or it's the same wafers that we turn into the same cells. They were excited at the time to be moving into HJT this year, and HJT is obviously the technology that REC use, and they predicted that HJT would be the future because you need about a quarter the amount of energy to actually turn that wafer into a cell than you do with the TOPCon process. And therefore, they reckon that everyone would go there this year. So it's an exciting time for solar modules. Right. We gain a little bit of efficiency. We drop down a little bit of degradation, all of the things that we look for. And of course, if it's cost effective, all the manufacturers will go there. So
but are they tier 1 panels though, Karl?
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
At the end of the day, our guys that were there, there was a collection of, 12 of us, something like that. We said, can we take some photos of the production line? And the guy says, unless you've got $4 billion and you can potentially set up your own plant, knock yourself out. So that's the hurdle, And in Australia, we've said we want to do our own solar panel manufacturing, and we're going to put $1 billion towards it. $1 billion isn't enough if you want to make, say, 5 or 6 gigawatts of cells and modules. Not enough money. So these plants are worth big bucks, and no getting past it. If the Chinese go broke, someone else is going to buy that factory and continue and slap a different sticker on the back. So I really do think that we are talking about buying petrol that's 91 octane, and everyone's got the same petrol, doesn't matter where you buy it.
Well, thanks again, Mark, for coming on, and thanks to you all for listening. Just a reminder that you should be booking tickets to Sydney. Come along and see us live at the Smart Energy Expo. It'll be great to catch up and network with everyone. And you can go to smartenergyexpo.org.au to register. Thanks for listening. Please share it around to those who might get benefit, which when we have guests like Mark, it's beneficial for lots of people to listen to this. Like, subscribe, share, and we'll catch you next time.